Right, so I think we can get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight with the New York Transit Museum. My name is Hillary Goldstein, and I'm the Public Programs Coordinator here at the New York Transit Museum. For reference, I'm a white woman with ear length, shoulder length, dark curly hair, glasses. I'm wearing a black top today. This virtual presentation is part of a series of online experiences that we're hosting throughout the year. Our virtual public programs include conversations, presentations, workshops, and performances hosted by the Transit Museum, and often drawing from our internal archives, collections, and exhibitions. And we also collaborate with other offices within the MTA, including the accessibility team, as we're doing tonight. We're so happy you all can join us and help us honor the 32nd anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Now, in case you haven't visited us before, the New York Transit Museum really started as an exhibition in the 1976 bicentennial. And it was so popular, it became a permanent museum in the 1980s. We are located in a decommissioned IND subway station in downtown Brooklyn, and we also have a gallery and shop in Grand Central Terminal. Our programs had gone largely virtual during the pandemic, but even though the museum is now open, we are continuing to host online programs on a variety of topics and for a variety of ages. It's a really great format that allows us to engage with museum and transit fans from all around the world. So thank you again for joining us. Before we get started, I'd just like to note that if you would like closed captioning for this discussion tonight, you can click where it says CC at the bottom of your screen, live transcript, and select show subtitle. If you don't see that option, you can click the more button with 3 dots and you should see the option pop up there. We are asking everyone to keep their microphones muted, but please feel free to use the chat to ask questions and to discuss with each other. And we should have time for Q&A at the end of the program. So now I'm very pleased to introduce our presenters this evening. First, we have Sarah Bari, who is the Senior Outreach Coordinator within the MTA Accessibility Unit at MTA headquarters. She works on accessibility and disability-related employee training, customer complaints, community outreach, employee engagement, and so much more. When she was 21, she was diagnosed with hearing loss, and her experience with navigating a disability diagnosis as an adult ignited her passion for making the world better for individuals with disabilities. We also have Josh Gee, who is the Director of Rider Products for the MTA. In that role, he is responsible for delivering excellent digital experiences to our riders via apps, websites, and in-station digital screens. He built the MTA's first customer-facing product team to help deliver those experiences. Thank you so much for being with us today. I will now hand it over to you, Sarah.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today. Just going to give a quick visual description of myself. I am a woman with brown hair that's tied back, brown eyes. I'm wearing a black blazer with olive complexion. So I will be using audio describing all of the images on screen today. We'll be going from left to right. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. Next slide, please. Today, we're going to be discussing accessibility at the MTA, specifically on subways, buses, and digital accessibility. So we'll go through some accessibility features that we're working on to enhance accessibility on the subway side, the bus side, and our digital accessibility, and I will hand that over to my colleague Josh when we're ready. And then we'll be sharing some information about how you guys can stay in touch. Next slide, please. Accessibility, as you guys know, the MTA, we're made up of many different agencies. We're made up of many different agencies, but today specifically, like I mentioned, we'll be talking about subway accessibility, as well as bus accessibility and digital accessibility at the agency. Next slide. Accessibility as it stands today at the agency, and when we talk about accessibility at the agency, we're talking about stations that we've gone through and retrofitted and made accessible. We have Long Island Railroad has 111 of their 124 stations that are accessible. At Transit, we have 140 of the 493 stations, including Staten Island Railway. Metro North has 84 of the 124 stations accessible, and our bus fleet, which contains 5,900 local, select, and express buses, are accessible via ramp or lift. Now, when we talk about accessibility, at the agency, we understand that it's so much more than just vertical access. But so what are we going to be doing at the agency? I'll go through exactly what we're going to be doing at the agency to enhance those features, to make accessibility more than just vertical access. And that's, we truly believe that it is more than vertical access. It's about providing information in languages that people can understand, in formats that people can understand. So we'll go into that, and if you just go to the next slide, please. So we have made commitments for having a system that's fully accessible. We're fully committed to having a system as accessible as possible. This is part of our 2020 to 2024 capital plan. We have committed to making 70 stations accessible. Some of the work on these stations has already begun. Some of the design at some of these stations has already begun. So it's moving. And the goal really is, with these additional 70 stations, is to have our riders no more than 2 subway stations away from an accessible station. So we're really looking to fill in those geographical transit gaps and make sure that everyone is no more than 2 stations away from an accessible station while we work to achieve full or almost complete accessibility. And under that same capital plan, Metro North and Long Island Railroad are also going to be making stations accessible. Long Island Railroad will be making 7 new stations accessible, and Metro North will be making 4 stations accessible. But transit, all 3, New York City Transit and both railroads, we are committed to investing and enhancing accessibility components at other stations, right? How can we go above and beyond? And we're going to get into that next slide. So on subway stations, we did discuss the capital plan and the goals for the capital plan. But when customers are inside subway stations, many times they may not be aware of the accessibility features that are available at the stations, and how hard we work to actually maximize accessibility for all riders of all abilities. And so let's just jump right into what are the features. So next slide, please. Accessibility features at subway stations. I'm going to start by describing the image to the left. On the left, there is a help point followed by 2 customer information screens. So the help point is a long, slender metal mount. It's a long, slender feature that's mounted to the wall, and it has a blue indicator light. And it also has 2 buttons. So one button is a red button for an emergency, which is used if someone needs to be connected right away to emergency personnel in a station. So you could just simply press that button and you will be connected with a live agent who's ready to handle your emergency. There's another button for general information, and that's a green button that sits right under that red button. And when you press that button, that green button, you'll be connected to a live customer service agent, and they are able to provide you with information. For example, if you want to know when the next train is arriving, they will provide you with that information. And so help points, in addition to connecting to live agents, they also have Braille and large lettering for our customers who are blind or low vision. And they also have hearing loop technology for our customers who use cochlear implants or hearing loops. Or hearing aids. And the customer information screens that are listed are at every subway station. They're inside all of the subway stations, and they provide information to customers in real time. And Josh can speak more to this as his team has worked on it. We have a static subway map so that customers can know exactly the subway map. Here it is. This is what you can access the information on. But we also have useful information on the customer information screens, like elevator and escalator availability at that specific station. So when you're in the station, if an elevator is out, it will tell you which elevator is out. It also provides information about delays within the system or service delays, and public service announcements that the screens are rotated. So they'll flip through and provide customers with all of the information that we have available, but this information is also available, right? So that this information is also available on our accessible site, new.mta.info. And with these screens specifically, we actually did enhance the visual accessibility of the screens by going to our advisory committee for transit accessibility, ACTA, and asking for their feedback on these screens. And we did a ride along where we went out to the system and tested a few of the screen visual accessibility on screens. And we have reduced the glare on screens. We've made the screens brighter. We've increased font color by making it darker. And we are very proud of that work. We know that we still have more work to do, but that is one way that we have enhanced the accessibility of these screens, ensuring that the visual accessibility of screens, that people are able to access that information. There's another image that is on the right-hand side. It is of signage that you will find inside of a subway station. It has an image of an arrow in white with a blue ISA icon, along with blue subway bullets for the AC and a orange subway bullet for the F, with the words "end of platform" written in white. And our screens are actually text on black for a very, very specific reason. And it's really to enhance that visual accessibility for our customers who have low vision. And it really increases the contrast. It creates a sharp color, a very sharp color contrast, so that you're able to see the information that's on the signage. A lot of people think that it's actually so that it's easier for us to clean, but it was actually feedback from advocates and riders that we heard that black works better. It gives them a lot more sharp contrast. So we have done that. Next slide, please. So at every accessible subway station, we have what is called a boarding area. So I'll start by describing the image to the left. There is an image of a customer in a manual wheelchair trying to board the one train. Right above him, there's a hanging sign that says boarding area. So the boarding area is located at the center of the platform near the conductor's booth. And it's specifically for people with disabilities or people who need to board, where we've raised the platform ever so slightly to mitigate that gap between the train and the platform, so that people can easily negotiate those gaps and they can easily board safely and exit the train safely. It's also where the conductor's booth is located. So if someone needs assistance, the conductor is there to be able to provide that assistance. The image to the right is a close-up of the signage. It's a close-up of the boarding area sign that is depicted in blue with white lettering and the international symbol for accessibility. And we have heard previously from customers that the boarding area is challenging to locate. And so we were thinking and racking our brains, what is an easy way to clearly mark that this is the boarding area, and this is where you should go. We did include this signage, the boarding area signage overhead, but again, we still heard from our customers and riders that this is not enough. We need more. Next slide, please. So in 2019, we launched what we called the Accessible Station Lab at J Street Metro Tug. And it was really a test. We ran it from 2019 to 2020 to test, what an accessible station of the future may look like. What components can we include, or what features can we include in our stations to enhance the travel experience for our customers with disabilities? And one feature that we tested is a boarding area decal. Start by describing the image to the left again. There is an image of a train pulled into the platform at J Street Metro Tech. There's a bright yellow tactile warning indicator. It's used for people who are blind or low vision. And then right next to it, there is a bright blue decal with the words boarding area in white and international symbol for accessibility icons, 3 of them listed. And so the boarding area, when we included it, the features like this decal, customers really liked it. They were like, this is great. This works. I can locate the boarding area. It's easy to find. But what we found is we need to test material, make sure that the material is durable and it can withstand the heavy usage in our system. So to the right, there's an image on the right-hand side of another test that we did with a different material at 42nd Grand Central. And similar to the image to the left, there's an image of the platform with no train, but the bright yellow tactile warning strip for people who need to know that that is the edge of the platform, but also that bright blue decal in a different material. The difference between the 42nd Street decal is that it marks where the elevator is located with an elevator icon and an arrow pointing to the direction of the elevator. We tested both materials. We are still looking for a more durable material that can withstand usage in our system. And that has proven to be a challenge because, we have a lot of people use our system every day, and we need to have a material that is able to be cleaned and maintained. And so we are very excited that we'll be doing additional testing at several stations for more materials. So at the end of this presentation, we'll be giving you contact information to stay connected. One way is through our newsletter that our team puts out. So we'll give that plug at the end so that you can go ahead and subscribe to our newsletter to get all of the latest updates about everything that I'm discussing and so much more. Next slide, please. So AutoGates at subway stations. At every accessible subway station, we have what is called an AutoGate. And this is a gate that is provided to customers who are not able to use the turnstile. So you're not able to negotiate or navigate going through the turnstile. You have access to the AutoGate. And I'll start by describing the image to the left. There is an image of a male in a manual wheelchair dipping a MetroCard into the AutoGate fare box. The image to the right depicts a parent pushing a black stroller going through a gate that is opening automatically. So the AutoGate, really, like I said, it is available at every station, every accessible station. And for people who can't use it, right? So you'll just simply dip, or you can also use Omni at the AutoGate for your preferred payment method. And to exit, customers will need to either dip or tap so that the gate can automatically open so that they can exit the station, but no fare is charged when the individual exits the station. And so with New York ever changing, we believe that our definition of accessibility needs to change as well, right? And so that's why we actually changed the AutoGate policy recently to include and allow anyone who needs access to that gate to access it without having a special MetroCard. Previously, the only people given access to the AutoGate were customers or people with disabilities, and who applied specifically for people who applied specifically for a reduced fare program. Now, with this new policy change, we have people with disabilities, aging New Yorkers, parents with strollers, travelers with luggage, and customers with bikes who need to be able to independently access the system. And so by opening up the AutoGate to everyone, enhances accessibility, right? Accessibility is so much more than just vertical access or people with mobility disabilities. And so opening it up to everyone, we have seen a great number of New Yorkers using the new AutoGate, and they are paying their fares. And so it's a great sign to show that New Yorkers know how to navigate our system. Give them access to the system. They know how to navigate it with correct information, making sure that our team puts out that correct information so that people know how to use it is another way that we do this. Next slide, please. So, understanding that the AutoGate is a good first step for ensuring all customers have access to our system, we do believe that it's not a long-term solution. And so I'm going to describe the image on screen, and we're going to be discussing what the future potential AutoGate could look like in our system. So on screen, there is an image of, or a mock-up or prototype of a wide fare gate that we're going to be testing in the system. So it's wider than the regular, it is wider than our regular turnstiles. And so it has two doors, two glass panel doors that can swing in either direction like salon doors. And so with this specific feature, we have $25 million allocated in the current capital plan, 2020 to 2024 capital plan, to invest in new fare gates like this one, so that we can eventually replace the AutoGate with more customer-friendly technology. And so we're going to get started by testing at 5 stations across the system starting this fall. So again, really tune into that newsletter so you can get all of these updates. You can give us feedback on these features. So the wide fare gate is enough to allow customers with mobility disabilities, parents with strollers, or anyone who needs to enter the turnstile. But it's wider, and the doors open. So you don't need to wait for this gate to open. It's just a simple mechanism that will release and allow you to go in. And we really are excited to get this technology into our system. We want to see how it works for customers, right? And so that's why your feedback is important. So plug into that newsletter so that you can get updates, go out and give us feedback. We really do believe that all of the features that we test should be tested, and we should hear from our customers before we just implement them into the system. So please provide us that feedback. And then we're going to work based on that feedback. We're going to work to design a fair gate technology that's a good fit for our transit system, and that it can provide access for more system-wide stations, or provide access to more stations system-wide. This is what we're hoping to achieve with the wide fare gate. Next slide, please. So we just talked about a few of the features in our subway stations. I'm going to jump into talking about subway cars, some accessibility features that are actually on the cars, and some things that we're looking to enhance or test out in future. Next slide, please. There's two images on screen. I'll start by describing the left image on screen. There is a male using a power chair inside of a subway car, and he is parked in a designated wheelchair priority seating area that does not have any flip seats. And before I jump to the next image, let me explain the priority seating. And so the priority seating, we have designated seats for people who use mobility disabilities, and also people with disabilities on our subway system. And depending on the subway car that you're in, each configuration is different. So there are some that have flip seats, some that don't have seats at all, but that is designated for people with mobility disabilities that need to safely have a space to park their device while the train is moving. The image to the right is what we call, and I hope people have noticed this on their commutes, it's the strip maps on inside our cars that list out the upcoming stops. So there's an image on screen with a strip map of the queue line with the upcoming subway stops listed in bright red and orange LED lights. And so, like I said, there's a ton of accessibility features on our subway cars. These are just two of them. I don't have enough time to highlight all of them, so I'm just going through this a little bit quickly. But if you are interested in learning more about what features we have, definitely reach out to us. Our contact info is at the end. So reach out to us and we'll definitely give you guys a much more robust list of all of the features. So while these features are great and they provide additional accessibility, we do want to enhance these. And so if you can go to the next slide, please, so that I can show the new R211 train cars. The new R211 train cars are going to be in service early next year, and really enhances accessibility. And so I'll start by describing the image on screen. The image on screen depicts a new R211 train car. It has blue floors with bright yellow decals near the windows near the doors with arrows, and another decal near the wheelchair priority seating with an ISA icon. And there are bright yellow poles for people to grab onto. On the R211s, the primary accessibility features include enhancements like, we have brighter contrasting between the train cars. On the actual cars, for those who are able to see the image, you can see that bright yellow on those grab bars, that bright yellow decal on the floor to let people know where to go, clearly marks where the accessible wheelchair boarding area, where the accessible priority seating area is located. There's also enhanced door indicator lighting to let you know which door is going to open and when the door is opening. When it opens, it'll have a green light, a green strip on either side of the door. And then also the passenger information signage is going to vary much more. And we are very excited about that. We're going to be able to get more information in cars, whether you're in the station or in the tunnel. We're hoping to be able to, and Josh can talk a little bit more about the app and the features that we're hoping to have on the app to enhance, in addition to work with the R211s and in future. Next slide, please.
Okay.
And so with those new R211s that are going to go into service early next year, just please, again, be sure to plug in so that we can get your feedback. I can't stress enough how important feedback is and how important it is for our agency specifically to be able to make changes that benefit our riders. So accessibility on buses. Next slide, please. I'm going to start again. I'm going to do similar to what we did on the subway side, and I'll be briefly explaining the features and then going into how we'll be enhancing them. So on the subways, on the left-hand side on the screen, there's an image of a digital information screen that is attached to the top of the interior of the bus. And these digital information screens provide both visual and audio information to customers. Like it provides information like GPS location, upcoming stop information, and it also provides PSAs, personal public service announcements, in both an audio and a visual component. And like I said, our buses are fully wheelchair accessible, but again, going above and beyond, understanding that it's not just about access, vertical access, we also need to have communication and information access. And so this is a great tool on our buses. We also have on the exterior of the bus, we have a bus warning, audible tone that is for people who are blind or low vision, because our electric bus fleet is a lot more quiet. And we've heard from them, from those riders specifically, that an indication that the bus is turning or that the bus is approaching would be helpful. And then we also have, when the doors open, it'll announce, this is the M15 going cross town. And this is, I think this is really important. Again, because we hear so many times people may be running to the bus, they're not sure what bus it is, or if it's even going in the right direction they need it to go. And so this adds that component, that additional accessibility component there for that audio announcement as well. So there's a visual now and there's an audio. And we're still working on a lot of other features on buses, which I'm going to get into in a second. But I want to describe the image on the right side as well. On the right-hand side, there's an image of a male with a black service animal seated in a priority seating designated seat on a MTA bus facing forward. And the service animal is directly in between his legs, laying on the floor. And so priority seating, it is mandated under the ADA, and it has been a part of our fleet for a long time. But like I said, New York is ever changing. Our constituents are changing, our constituencies changing. And so we're always looking for ways, right, to adjust bus seating to improve access for everyone. If you can go to the next slide, please. Alrighty. So here's some changes that we're actually changing on buses, the new bus seat configuration. On the left-hand side, a gentleman using a service animal is seated in one of the new flip seat bus designs at priority seating. One of the seats closest to the aisle is flipped forward. The gentleman is seated at the seat closest to the window, and the service animal is seated or laying down directly where that seat is flipped up. On the right-hand side, we have an image of a customer seated with the flip seat directly next to him, flipped forward, and the customer has a cart parked where that seat is flipped up. These new flip seats, we have ordered 800 of these new buses to go in service, and some of them are already in service. So let us know in the chat if you've already seen these, if you've tested them. Feel free to let us know. But we really did hear, that we need to make priority seating more flexible. We have to provide more accessibility because our city is ever changing, right? So it's a no-brainer that we looked at something to change flip seats. And so these flip seats originally were designed to really help keep our buses safe by keeping mobility devices that are not wheelchair, not for people who are not using a wheelchair. It's specifically people who are using walkers or service animals, shopping carts, and it's really just a space for them to be able to keep their items out of the aisle and keep the aisles clear so that our other passengers are safe, but also so that they're comfortable while they're riding our buses. And through this conversation of flip seats, we have started a stroller working group to try to figure out how we can allow strollers on buses. So flexible seating, again, it goes to much more than just accessibility. We are looking at new configurations for bus strollers on buses, and more to come on that as our working group makes recommendations to us. But these flip seats are just one way that we're working to enhance features on buses. We are looking and we are currently testing hearing loop technology on buses and how that could potentially look. So again, lots of innovative things happening on the bus side. But we're working on it. And again, stay in touch with us so that you can know exactly what is going on. Get the most up-to-date accessibility and related information from us. Next slide, please. So I did mention the wheelchair securement area. So on all of our buses, we have 2 designated wheelchair priority seating areas. And they are located in the front of the bus, in the forward-facing seats inside of our buses. Let me start by describing the image to the left. There is a bus operator securing a customer in a motorized power chair. And to the image to the right, we have a customer in a manual chair waiting to be secured by the bus operator as she is looking. Seems to be towards the operator. So securement is a requirement on all of our buses, local, SBS, and express buses, and they have what is known as a 4-point strap system, which is designed to secure the customer using the wheelchair. And this is really for the safety of our passengers. But we have heard a lot from our riders, specifically people who are in wheelchairs, that the securement sometimes is extensive. The operators, we've also heard from our operators that sometimes they're not comfortable securing people just because it's a little bit challenging, or every mobility device, specifically every wheelchair is made differently, and they are made custom to people. So if they are broken, it can be a problem. And they can be a problem. So we are looking for innovative solutions. If we can go to the next slide so we can discuss what that innovative solution is that we're looking to test. So again, securement is a requirement, and we really think that it's important to keep our passengers safe. And so we are going to be testing or piloting a future securement system, a self-securement system. It's called Quantum, and this self-securement system allows our riders to ride independently without the need for a bus operator to come and assist them or secure them. And so the image on screen is of a gentleman using a manual chair who is looking outside of the bus and secured using the independent quantum self-restraint. So the Q-straint system, it does secure mechanically, and what it does is it holds the person's manual or power chair in place between 2 silver arms, and it takes 20 seconds to secure without assistance, and has a no slack way for the way our current system does. So there's not going to be, you have to wait 5 minutes for the operator to secure you. This system really is a 20-second system. And so we do want to test it to see how it is going to work in our system, and how our riders, our bus riders specifically, what they think of this. And so, like I said, more information to come. So please really subscribe to our newsletter, check our webpage, new.mta.info/accessibility for all of the latest up-to-date accessibility information. We are excited about this feature. So I will say, if you want to test, let us know. But now I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Josh, who will speak about digital accessibility at the MTA. Josh.
Howdy, everybody. Thanks all very much for having me, and thanks for attending today. And I'll echo, I hope everyone's staying cool. I have male, pronouns he, him. I've got some brown hair that has a little more gray in it than I would like to actually acknowledge to everyone, and I'm wearing a white shirt. Let's go to the next slide. So I run our Rider products team. Sometimes we call it the digital services team. And one of the things it's a very new team at the MTA. We've really only had a customer-facing digital team for about 4 years. And it is and accessibility is a core part of our team's values and mission statement. This slide up on the screen now shows part of our value statement, which is our products are intuitive and easy to use, no matter who you are. We design and build with a focus on the full range of human experiences. We prioritize products that are usable to the fullest extent by as many people as possible, and we cultivate connections to communities that might be overlooked. As I said, a value statement, we don't always hit that goal, but we're always striving for it. So that's something that we'll keep working for. Let's go to the next slide. We think about accessibility in two main dimensions when we build digital products. Mobility information. The slide that's up right now is just an outline of what I'm talking about. Mobility information, so tools we can provide to help people get around our system and know more about the various pieces of mobility equipment that are available. And then digital accessibility. How do our digital tools work for people who use assistive technology like screen readers? How are we using audio as well as visual tools? I should probably have added a thing about language access here. I didn't think about it at the time. So I won't speak to it too much in this, but that's definitely an area that we think about as well. Let's go to the next slide. Currently, we have a couple of main tools for mobility information. Accessible trip planning, that's available on our website and in the My MTA app. That allows you to using our trip planner to pretty easily, find trips that are either fully accessible or just minimize walking, and easily get find point-to-point instructions across multiple modes, whether that be buses, subways, or railroads. We also on this slide, there's a picture of an accessible trip plan from MTA headquarters to Yankee Stadium. And then also on this slide is a screenshot of our elevator and escalator lookup tool, which is a simple tool on the website that lets you see what elevators and escalators are into or out of service in our network. You can search or filter. You can also see the lines affected and what more information about the outage, when it will be back, and stuff like that. Not listed, but my team also runs the front end of our Accessoride system. That's our paratransit service. That offers eligible riders the ability to sort of book car and van service online, as well as get dynamic information, kind of Uber-like, for the rides when they're in progress. So these are the current tools, but we're obviously trying to work on a bunch more. So let's go to the next slide. Oh yeah, right. Duh, I forgot about the one thing I was going to mention here. Some other current tools that we work towards is in the digital realm. We work for its digital application best practices. Probably some of you are familiar with the WCAG standards. We know those aren't enough, but it's a good standard we shoot for. So we aim for WCAG 3.0 standards on all of our tools, which makes them usability by screen readers and other kinds of tools. We've also introduced new web content standards, because I think one of the things that I've learned over the past 5 or 6 years of doing this kind of work is that just meeting the standards is enough if you're not actually optimizing your content for people who are using screen readers. So there's a screenshot here of our fares page, which if you check out, we now organize content around easily sortable headers. shorter columns, shorter sentences and shorter columns. We also work for a lower reading level across the entire website, which makes it easier for everyone to understand, but also if English isn't your first language or if you're using a screen reader. So there's a lot of sort of, I think putting digital accessible content on the internet is a mixture of technology and editorial that I get really excited about. Let's go to the next slide. So some of the upcoming tools we have for that I'm particularly excited about. One thing we're working on right now is push notifications that will be part of the MyMTA app. Those will be not only are those just those will be incredibly helpful for everyone. One thing that we've heard is this is a great way to offer parity to some of the digital screens, information parity to some of the digital screens in station. Push notifications that deliver service alerts, that deliver arrival information, that may someday deliver even time to get off the bus or get off the train, we're at your stop kind of information. Those can easily be read by screen readers without having to sort of navigate all the way through the app, and can and especially in areas where digital screens might not have audio companions or where announcements are hard to hear. Those are great, and those are something we're working on right now. So hopefully to have those soon. And then better web accessibility testing and development is another big priority of ours. We're always trying. We're a new team, so we're trying to get better in the ways we build software. And I'm very aware that some of these are sort of the web accessibility standards aren't enough. So we're working to integrate actual real serious testing with members of the community, with screen readers as we build, so that we see it. So that we can see some of these features really working as they go. And then a continued push for better web accessibility in our content. I think the MTA is a big organization. Not everyone totally understands what we're doing. And so, we're working with a lot of the teams across the MTA, project teams, communications teams, to better understand why we're trying to structure their content the way we are, to make it more accessible for everyone. On this slide is basically an outline of what I just said, as well as a screenshot of an iPhone showing a push alert with some departures, with departure information on it. Let's go to the next slide. Some upcoming tools for mobility information. This slide has a brief outline on it and a screenshot of. This is actually, I think, the first time this has been shared in public. This is a very rough screenshot of what a future version of MyMTA might look like. For those that are looking at it, won't be black and white. This is what we call a wireframe. But we're looking at a couple of things to make mobility information easier to find. One of that is better integrating mobility information. One of the areas where I think MyMTA currently falls down a lot is that elevator and escalator or other kinds of mobility information are separate from the rest of the information. So you find your subway arrivals or service alerts in one place, and then you have to go somewhere else to check. That's silly. We're going to be working to put all of that information you need to get around together in single interfaces. So better accessible trip planning. This is something we're always working on. We're going to keep trying to make accessible trips better. We're also working on trying to make it easier so that if a trip planner is offering you a trip plan that is affected by, say, an elevator being out of service, that's a bit more obvious. Right now, it doesn't do that super well, and we need to make some underlying data improvements to make that happen. We're also working on turn-by-turn directions in stations. In stations, so that the accessibility team has been actually working with the accessibility team's been working with the Subways Technologies team, and they've done an amazing job collecting information on and sort of mapping a lot of our subway stations, so that eventually the trip planner can actually give sort of, walk 100 meters that way, turn left, take the stairs, take the elevator kind of directions that we could display in a trip planner, or even off, all kinds of things there. We sort of have to do a lot of wrangling to get that data working, but it's a really exciting initiative that we can eventually better do. And then finally, the last bullet is thinking about potentially better accessibility APIs. This is something I'm particularly excited about. An API is a tech word for basically how we share information and data. Right now, we just kind of offer information about elevators or escalators. Are they out of service? Are they in service? We're working on something that might better describe it in slightly more human-centric terms. So, imagine an API that could tell you, okay, at Times Square, can I make an accessible transfer from the Times Square shuttle to the 2 train right now, rather than having to do the mental math in your head, oh, which elevators are out of service and where do they serve? And that might be another way that we can then use those to unlock even better, interesting displays of this kinds of accessibility information. And as I alluded to, this slide has a screenshot of a MyMTA redesign we're working on. And the screenshot in particular shows it's an example of our stop screen. So this is the stop in Charles Square. As I said, this is a wireframe, so this isn't a fully finished version. We're just getting all the pieces in place. But one thing you can see here is that in the screenshot is, the station has accessibility information front and center, right below the station name. Below that are a bunch of all of the routes serving that station, and right below that is a big button indicating that there are, in fact, elevator outages happening at this station. I think that is my last slide, and it sounds like I see someone commenting that I was breaking up a little bit, so I apologize for those that had trouble following. Happy to answer questions if things got missed.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Josh, for taking us through that really incredible presentation and all of these great details and services. I think you had another slide here that had some of those resources, or are we at the end? Here we go. Didn't know if you wanted to mention anything about these.
Yes, sorry, I was muted. I have put into the chat some of the information that's on this screen. So again, we have the MTA Accessibility newsletter, where we constantly are sending out notifications to customers about accessibility upgrades at the MTA, things that we're working on, feedback that we would like to receive. So please subscribe to that newsletter and share it with your friends. Share this list with as many people, with this link with as many people as you would like. We really want to hear from people. We want people to have this information. And so again, looking at ways, this was one thing that our team did to really look at ways that we can provide information to our riders. If you guys need to contact the MTA Accessibility team with anything MTA accessibility related, you can do so at accessibility@mtahq.org. Going to put it in the chat, and I will put all of this again in the chat before we leave. The MTA Accessibility webpage, new.mta.info/accessibility. Again, we do update these pages with all of information. If you're interested in learning more about J Street or interested about anything that I've spoken about, the current features, it is available on the site. The elevator escalator status page that Josh had mentioned, I've also put it into the chat. The accessibility dashboard, and then also the MTA accessible stations, specifically New York City Transit accessible stations map. And we can go to questions, Hillary.
Fantastic. So yeah, now we can really open it up to questions. Please feel free to use the chat. We can also ask you if you'd like to unmute and share. You could click down below on the reaction buttons and raise your hand, and then we can ask you to share. Let me stop sharing for a minute so we can do this. So I have a question from Christopher Grief. Is that said right correctly? Griff?
It's Griff.
Griff. Sorry about that. Please share your question.
No, all I said was on the chat, and hi, Sarah, and hi, everyone. I did say this, like, as we're celebrating the 8832, we need to please support the system-wide accessibility, because we've been working very hard to make sure that we make everything truly ADA accessible. And this is something I really do say to everyone who's here today, please, please, let's move on to the new future. We have a whole new team. We have a great team. And I really appreciate everyone to please support this very much. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, if anybody else has questions, please feel free to use the chat. I did notice a few were asking about access to the recordings and the slides. So just to know that we will make those available. We'll be sending that out to everyone who is registered in the next couple of days. So you can look for that, which will have all of these resources again repeated.
Good evening, everyone. This is Rachel Cohen from the MTA Accessibility team. I see we have a couple questions in the chat about Apple, Android and iOS and the app, which maybe Josh, I don't know if we have anything, else to add, but I also saw earlier on one or two questions about station announcements. And, many of you who ride the subway have probably heard in recent years that our new technology cars, as you're approaching an accessible station, now tell you that, in audio, we announce this is J Street Metrotech, an ADA accessible station, and give the location of the elevator or ramp, whether it's at the front, the center, or the rear of the platform. We get a lot of really positive feedback on that. And we also hear from many folks, one of the questions that was raised tonight about real-time status information. And just to be very clear, that is static information about the accessibility of the station. So, think of it like the international symbol for accessibility on the map. If we're announcing, this is an accessible station, it indicates that elevators are there. It is not real-time status information. Those announcements are updated on like a recurring schedule basis, a couple times a year. They're not updated in real time. So that information is available on the elevator escalator status page that Sarah showed, on screens throughout our system. And we're working to get that information out in more and more ways. We understand that real-time elevator status is critical for people that use elevators, but we hope that the arrival announcement information is still useful for folks just to know what stations are accessible, and if you're looking for the elevator or ramp, where it's located so that you can safely navigate the platform. So thanks for that.
There were a couple questions about standards for audio volume and how that works within the system.
We can get back to you around what are the standards for the volume in the system, or for audio announcements in the system.
Okay, great. Are there updates for which stations are going to be next to get elevators?
Really good question. So I will actually share the list of the next 70 that are currently in this capital plan that are listed to or slated to be made accessible. I will share that now in the chat.
Okay, great. There's a question a little bit earlier on that I thought was interesting. I was talking about kind of why it had taken so long for some of these developments to take place. But I thought maybe a better way to frame that is what have been some of the biggest challenges or barriers to kind of getting some of these new accessible features in the system?
I think there's a few, one of them being funding, but also building that relationship with the community was so crucial for the agency, just hearing what our riders needed and how we can make it so that our riders get what they want. We no longer just want to implement things, right? We want it to work for our riders. And so it takes a little bit longer to have all of these. So while we're working on it on the back end, before we roll it out, we really want to make sure that it works. So we're doing more pilots, we're doing more testing so that we're not having to take things away once they're already out there. We want to make sure that the product that we're putting out benefits our riders, that it matches their need. And so that's why some of these things do take longer. We do have to talk to a lot of different vendors. We need to make sure that, in addition to the vendors doing what they need to do, but that it also is going to work for our riders. So that's why some of these things have taken longer. And then, of course, securing funding is a little bit of a challenge. But I think hearing from the community and understanding their priorities and the priorities that our riders want has really helped us push forward on these enhancements.
That's great.
And I would one additional challenge, is the kind of complexity and really diversity within the system. I think it's less that we have many stations and more that, we have this sort of no two stations are alike, which is part of the charm of the system, I think, especially for subway riders, but also makes it incredibly challenging to scale up, when we have new features that we want to roll out, whether that's signage or, a wayfinding smartphone application, where, it's time, right, to look at things sort of individual station by individual station. And we're pushing ahead on much of that work, as Sarah discussed tonight. And it will, it will take time, and we really appreciate the input of this group and advocates and riders to help us as we move those things forward.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you all so much for coming and sharing all of this information with us. And we really do see that you have, opened up the doors to invite comments and criticism and to kind of learn and evolve the system through that. So thank you so much for sharing all these details. And again, for everyone who has come, if you missed any part of it, the slides and the recording will be made available to you, hopefully tomorrow, but just keep watching your email in the next few days. And as we wrap up for tonight, I just wanted to thank you all for coming and joining us tonight. Just a reminder that the museum is now open, so please do come and join us. We have newly expanded hours. We are open Thursdays through Sundays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. We still do require advanced tickets, but you can purchase them online at museum.org. If you enjoy our programming, please consider making a donation, and we hope to see you at our next events. Next week, we are having a virtual program, which is certainly very appropriate right now. Wednesday, July 27th at 6 p.m., we're hosting the virtual Escape to Coney Island in partnership with the Coney Island Museum and the Coney Island Brewery. And I think we can all use a little summer escape from the heat right now. So please register and join us. Once again, that's Wednesday, July 27th at 6 p.m. You can sign up at nytransitmuseum.org. Thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
And we'll see you all next time. Have a wonderful night.